So now I'm ready to sort of talk a little bit more candidly about some of the errors that you're likely encountering, and then trying to help you articulate them a titch better, and also try to help you resolve them a little bit better. This program right now looks wonderful, and yet it's actually got three types of errors in it. When I'm going to run it the first time, I'm going to run it. It's going to say save, boom. It has an actual syntax error. So a syntax error is basically when the code just simply cannot be understood because there's a fundamental flaw in how you're trying to sort of express that idea. So for example, right here, by the way, it's telling me what a syntax error is, but let me just down here in another context. If I go X or A is assigned 1 plus divide blob, that makes no sense. And so it would basically be a syntax error. Now, in this case, it's also, I'm sure you've talked to some people and you understand what they're saying. They seem to be using words, but they don't make sense. That's a syntax error. So in this case, it's sort of suggesting the syntax error is here, but you could, if you want, see what's going on in that line, but it's probably not that line. It's probably the line above. It takes a while to get that instinct, but don't just look at the line that you think the error is in. Look at what led before that line. And so what led before that line is that we actually have an input here which is not properly closed. The input's fine, but the integer function needs to have a closed parentheses. Watch what happens when I close it. Boom. Now the whole thing is closed. All right. So by the way, that should work, but I don't want to give too much away yet. If I was missing the end of the double quote, notice that this is now green. If I try to now run that, I'm also going to get a syntax error. EOL means end of line. So end of line while scanning string literal. That's actually a pretty good error message. One other quick thing I should tell you, most error messages suck. And so trying to figure out what they actually mean is pretty challenging. But in this case, yeah, this makes perfect sense. The end of the line, they can't basically reach the end of the line while scanning the literal. And that's because, okay, thank you. And that's because the double quote's missing. So I do that double quote. Yeah, let's go double quote. Is there any other, I suppose if I had a weird operator, this might be a problem, although it might not actually be. No, that's not a problem. We'll let that go. We'll let that go because that's not so much an actual syntax error. It was able to interpret it. It just didn't understand it. All right. So that's what a syntax error is. Now let's talk about, so we fixed the syntax error, right? So we fixed the syntax error with double quote. Now let's run it and see what else is wrong with this program. So I run it and start to run just fine. How many payments? So 4 payments, and it's 4 payments of $100. And we go, and now this thing blew up in runtime. So it's called a runtime error. There's nothing necessarily wrong with the syntax of the code, but something I've told it to do while running has caused it to freak out. And so now it's blowing up. And so if we have a look here, because this guy was allowed to run, it's kind of telling us, okay, look, this file had a problem on line 12. This line had a problem. And then here it's actually giving us what it thinks is the actual name of the error. That's what that's kind of saying. This is the name of the error, and that's what it is. So it's basically saying that this guy is not defined. So notice it had no problem with this line or this line or this line. Comes down, has no problem with this line. When it hits this line, it's saying that this is not defined. It discovered that in runtime. That's a very Python-esque way to deal with it. If this was C or Java, it would have blown up while it tried to compile, which is itself another kind of error message. But this isn't compiled, it's interpreted. It runs each line as it goes. And so when it hit this guy, it said, hey, I don't know what FTL total is, because of course up here I've called it FLT total. This error, by the way, inspired by the previous few videos where I kept choking myself up. So if I change this thing to LT, now this guy matches this guy, and there's no more code in this thing. So let's I'll run it in the same shell. That's fine. I'm gonna go run, go. And so now I'm gonna go 4 payments of $100, and this is the sneakiest kind of error, right? So the program worked, and if I'm really tired like I am today, I might miss the fact that it's actually wrong. This is a logic error, okay? This is a logic error. So the syntax of the program worked just great. It ran to a clean conclusion at the end, so there's no runtime errors, but I'm sure you guys will understand that 4 payments of $100 shouldn't be $104, it should be $400. What's wrong with that? And this is where, again, you got to go desk check your formulas, make sure you understand. In this case, this operator here, where it's adding the 2, it shouldn't take the number of payments and add it to the payment amount. It should take the number of payments and multiply it by the payment amount. All right, so now when I run this thing, and I go 4, and I go 100, I get the right answer, 400. So that's the 4 kind of errors, sorry, three kind of errors you get in Python. You get the syntax, where it can't even figure out what you're even trying to say. Runtime, where as it's running through the code, it knows what you said, but it runs into an error. And then the logical, where it did everything right, everything you asked it to do, but apparently what you asked it to do wasn't right. In this case, changing addition to multiplication. There's one other kind of error out there, which I said a bit earlier, and that's a compile error. And I am probably not going to talk about it now, but as you start to move to other languages like C or why am I blanking? Anyway, the whole concept of compilation is a little bit beyond what I want to talk about here, but that would be your 4th kind of error. All right, so and you'll be seeing lots of those as you code. I still see them even at my stage, so you'll see lots of them. And the hardest one for sure to figure out when you got a complicated program is the logical error. That is basically where it's producing results that you can't quite figure out why is it producing the results. And then you got to go through and chase back the logic and see, where did I make that mistake? In my case, making it plus instead of multiply was a mistake. All right, that's it for that one.